Welcome to Future Back Drinking, brought to you by PepsiCo and Time. I'm your host, Dr. Athina Kanioura, and as PepsiCo Chief Strategy and Transformation Officer, I believe it's incredibly important to speak with today's industry leaders about the technologies, innovations, and ideas that are certain to impact all of us. Future Back Drinking is not just a podcast, it's a journey through the now into the next. And joining me is my co-host Priyanka Aribindi. Hello, Priyanka.
Great to see you again, Athina. We have a great guest lined up. Tell us all about who we're joined by today.
Yes, our guest today, Vivian Schiller, is the Vice President and Executive Director of Aspen Digital, where she leads conversations at the intersection of media, democracy, and the digital revolution. Vivian is one of the most respected voices in journalism and media innovation, with a career that spanned leadership roles at NPR, NBC News, the New York Times, and Twitter. She's guided major organizations through periods of disruption, helping them adapt to new technologies, new audiences, and new ways of doing business. At Aspen, she brings together leaders from across technology, policy, and media to explore some of the most urgent questions of our time, from the future of trust and transparency to the ethical use of emerging technologies.
So, Athina, I know that you and PepsiCo have had a long partnership with the Aspen Institute. I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you work together and specifically why. What kind of brings you to them and them to you? What is bringing you to collaborate?
The role of partnerships in the ecosystem of PepsiCo has always been important, and that spans from academic institutions, obviously nonprofit like Aspen, and many other corporations that share same beliefs, values, and jointly can amplify the strategy but also mission and vision of the organization. So with Aspen, the relationship has always been on how we can help, on one hand, research that falls under the responsibility of Aspen Digital in the areas of emerging technologies, in the areas of responsible AI and trust through practical examples. So further the research to have much more validity through actual examples. In our case, it was also to validate some of our thinking. It was also to validate PepsiCo can now share the knowledge and the know-how across various industries. So typically the engagement is very natural, where Vivian and I would sit down and brainstorm on what are those big themes that are very important for the society, very important for the US, very important for the international markets. And then how does PepsiCo think about those changes and what could be those practical implementations that through the power of the global reach of PepsiCo, we can test and showcase for the rest of the industry. So we always value partnerships that can further the agenda of learning and sharing across the community and outside the borders of our organization.
That leads us perfectly to today's guest.
Hi, Vivian. Thank you for joining us today. We like to start things off with a quick cheers.
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 The two of us have known each other now for several years. You've worked in Aspen Institute, which has been long recognized as a venue where individuals from very diverse backgrounds gather for in-depth and values-driven discussions. So if you were to think of the era now of rapid technological and societal transformation, how do you see the role of the Institute evolving beyond what it is now?
Oh, that's a great question, Athina. And thank you so much for having me. This is really an honor to be on your program. So the Aspen Institute is vast, and the Aspen Institute does many things across many different areas. My area, as the head of Aspen Digital, one of the bigger programs at the Aspen Institute is to focus on cutting-edge technologies plus cybersecurity. These days, everything is AI, but also media and information ecosystem. So frankly, I think technology and media are two of the most important factors in our world today. I mean, they have been for a long time. So I like to think of our program as sort of one of the more future forward-leaning parts of the group. Now, everything that we do, we're a mission-based, not-for-profit organization, nonpartisan, is about how these factors influence the world, influence society, influence our economy, influence our well-being. And so I have to say, with particularly lately, with all of the just accelerating advances in AI in particular, we have our hands full. So we will continue to be looking forward, trying to stay on top of things, try to bring sense-making to our stakeholders, to the people that we interact with, And so in that sense, it doesn't change the mission of the Institute. It very much sort of folds into the mission of the Institute.
No, which is great. And you touched about one of the missions is AI and media. So if we look at what AI has been doing, it is definitely reshaping how stories are discovered, created, and shared. And obviously, with your background in now emerging technologies, but also journalism and media, how do you think AI has a role to play in journalism, content, and the media industry?
Well, it has tremendous impact. And in fact, this is a big area of focus for us in our program. So first of all, to state the obvious, it is a big, important area of reporting for news organization. The story of AI, the stories of how AI is in our world today, in some cases, the harms it causes, in other cases, the incredible advances in power of AI, the business dynamics of these big companies getting, we now have seen NVIDIA as a company, it's the biggest market cap ever in history. All of these things are ripe for reporting by news organizations. It's very important that the public understands. But where we spend most of our time is on how AI is impacting, again, for good and for ill, the ability of the public to get reliable information. So we do a lot of work with news organizations. We were just, for example, in Buenos Aires a few weeks ago, meeting with news organizations from all over Latin America, bringing together about ways that they can use AI to advance their reporting, to do investigative journalism, to find better ways to reach their audience, test headlines. There's a lot of exciting ways that news organizations can use AI. So we're convening news organizations all over the world. But one of the other big challenges is the way that AI is impacting information ecosystems. Most of us these days around the world discover news first through feeds or from our friends through WhatsApp or what have you. And so it's not always easy to tell the quality and provenance of where that content is coming from. And frankly, some of it is wonderful, and a lot of it is, our new favorite term is AI slop. Some of it is just for entertainment, dancing babies, whatever, if that's your thing, great. But some of it is intentionally designed to mislead. The third way that AI is impacting the news media, and again, it's not so much that we care about the news media, we care about the role that the news media plays to help inform populations and the public, is that up till recently, and still a little bit today, a lot of people discover news through search. They put in a query and they get a bunch of links, and many of those links were news organizations. Well, now, if you go, for instance, to Google, but this is true of all the AI, frontier companies, you will get a chatbot answer at the top of the feed. So you don't necessarily need to go to a link. Now, those answers, if it's a news story, are derived from news organizations that have been crawled by the large language models and reconfigured to give an answer. It may or may not be accurate, but also crucially, it doesn't necessarily send you to a news organization, which undermines the business model. So that's a lot of stuff. It's really complicated, but it's having a profound impact on both the viability of journalism and the information that the public gets.
There's a lot of that I think we want to dig into, but one facet in particular that I would love to hear from you about is mitigating some of those big fears that people have around modern media, especially with misinformation, deepfakes. How are you discussing that at the Aspen Institute, and what is that conversation like in the rooms that are determining the fight against this?
It's a big concern and a big risk because there's a lot now with Sora out there. It's so easy to create video. The technology has just gotten incredible. But
Wild.
The uncanny valley has been bridged over, man. So there's no way that you can just look at something and know anymore. All of the 6-fingered hands and stuff, that's quickly disappearing. So you don't know if what you're looking at is real. And a lot of people that I talk to are predicting there will be some deep fake that causes worldwide panic because it looks like a famous person launching a nuclear weapon or what have you. I actually don't think that will happen. I think something much more scary will happen, which is as people get used to seeing these deep fakes across their feeds, mixed in with actual real video or real photographs, they will just stop believing anything, whether it's real or not. It's a further erosion of the foundation of agreed upon evidence-based reality that we have lived in until, for the most part, we have lived in before the AI era. This is sometimes called the liar's dividend because when nobody can trust anything they see, it gives an opportunity for the autocrat or the would-be autocrat to come in and say, don't believe anything you see, just listen to me. So what are we doing about it? It's a big concern. We're working with technology companies to see what they can do around sort of labeling and provenance. Content moderation, as you probably know, is out of favor these days, but there's certain transparency signals that are still possible. It doesn't mean that you necessarily take something down. You just make sure that it's clear what it is and what it isn't. We're also hearing from a lot of news organizations who are leaning much more into a direct relationship with the public so that the public will be encouraged to go directly to that news organization. Now, this is an uphill battle because it's very convenient to get your news and information from feeds. But the more that news organizations either showing up in a feed under their brand or, again, having that high-touch direct relationship, the more reliable news and information can reach the public. But it's challenging.
And you see the challenge everywhere, Vivian. And unfortunately, Americans' trust in media continues to reach new lows. So what do you think can be done at this point to salvage or rebuild people's trust in media?
Part of the problem is the word media. I mean, media is such a generic term. And if you ask me, do I trust the media? My immediate answer is, well, what do you mean by media? I mean, there are certain institutions that I trust, and there are certain institutions I don't trust. So even I, somebody who comes from journalism, I don't trust the media because there's a lot of bad media out there. So it's really difficult. I think, one, we could maybe ask better questions in the polling, for one thing. Beyond that, there's no shortcut. We live in, particularly in the United States, in a very polarized times, and people are attracted to media that tells them what they want to believe, whether it's true or not. And media literacy is low. There's a lot of talk out there about making sure that the next generation is, more media literate. But this is a very long-term solution to a big immediate problem. So it's a big challenge.
Certainly a generational kind of undertaking. I know, Athina, that you and PepsiCo have actually done some work with Vivian and the Aspen Institute. I'd love if you could take a minute to tell us a little bit more about what that looks like and how you're working together.
Yeah, and Vivian and I, that's why I said we go a long way back, because when the Aspen Digital Group and Vivian wanted to rethink AI in workforce, especially in the manufacturing space, we did a lot of research on, okay, what does it mean for the next generation of manufacturers, especially the small and medium-sized manufacturers, and rethinking the shape of the jobs, the reskilling, upskilling component, and of course, what does it mean for the U.S. economy and companies like PepsiCo providing a platform for those small manufacturers to grow and thrive in the US. So the partnership has been exceptional because this is where you bring the independent design authority of the Aspen Digital with the experiences of PepsiCo to provide, I would say, Vivian, if you agree with me, a view of how you can reshape the future of manufacturing, but also from a lens of how you can allow smaller manufacturers to grow and not just the big manufacturers.
I think that's absolutely right. It was a really eye-opening partnership. And I will say one of the things that PepsiCo under Athina's leadership has done so well and is modeling also for smaller manufacturers is the way they don't just impose a top-down AI processes in manufacturing. They involve at every level from the very beginning, the people on the manufacturing floor, the managers, the foremen and women. So the people who are closest to the work, who understand what work is needed and how to improve their lives and their ability to get work done. It wasn't just about replacing people with machines, but about enhancing the entire experience for their workforce and for their customers, of course. And therefore, it follows on for their shareholders. So that was very eye-opening. And it was really, especially in this day and age when you hear about a lot of maybe not very thoughtful replacement of people with technology, PepsiCo is really a shining example.
No, amazing. And thank you for the great partnership. And we continue to see what the future brings to us in terms of AI workforce and evolution of the workforce to be able to fortify it in the next era. Touching a bit on the topic of leaders in this evolving new space, how do you see those leaders trying to innovate without losing their core identity or values, especially in a world that is ever changing and very pressured with financial KPIs?
Well, it's always challenging for leaders, particularly of big companies or institutions, but this is a particularly challenging time, I think, on two fronts. One, we're in a very evolving political environment, and I think a lot of leaders are trying to figure out how best to navigate that, and when we live in very polarized times. And then for some institutions, this isn't the case for all, the AI component, which is how do you think about harnessing a technology that has the promise to bring great efficiency without losing your humanity and your care, your duty of care for the people who are trying to be part of your workforce. So these two things together are really challenging a lot of leaders, particularly in the United States right now, but I think all over the world.
Do you see that also being a very difficult financial equation to solve around the viability of some of those businesses in the future and how they're thinking of the evolving business model because of the technology?
Of course, it's a challenge. I mean, you need to deliver that value, and that may mean, having to consider sacrificing some of the workforce or having to completely change your business model because your business model is going to be obviated by advances in AI. So we're seeing a shakeout. Certainly, some of the big tech companies are just gaining dominance. So we're seeing sort of a change of power. We're seeing a lot of concentration in, a few tech companies, and we see non-tech companies trying to figure out how to navigate it. So we're still in the beginning stages here, but it's a challenge.
Before we get into our next question, I just wanted to ask you, you've had such a long career in media, so many different organizations you've led through these really transformative periods of time, really changing business models in them. I would love to hear your advice for leaders who are navigating times of intense change. How do you lead an organization at a time like that?
It's very hard. I think there's a few things that good leaders do and do well. There's some commonalities. I think transparency is at the top of the list. I've seen too many leaders in organizations who for some reason believe that information hoarding is power and makes them seem important. I think actually the opposite is true. So whether I was in the role of a CEO or in the role of leading a large part of an institution, I always took the approach that unless something is explicitly confidential, and of course there's always things that are confidential, that I share everything with the teams at every level. Because what I have discovered is when you're going through challenging times, challenging for whatever reason, that sharing, it's a level of vulnerability. It's not even so much vulnerability like I'm struggling, I don't know what to do. That's not what I mean. But you're saying, look, let me spell out for you exactly the challenges we're facing. And it makes people feel like they're all in it together. So I think transparency. I also believe that generosity and empathy are incredibly important. I will quote the famous philosopher Taylor Swift, who would say, do not mistake my kindness for weakness. Kindness absolutely is not a weakness. I think it's actually a strength. And I would also, the third attribute I would say, and this is an attribute that I think is infectious from leaders to teams, is curiosity. Throughout my career, and I didn't even really realize it until hindsight, is that I was always curious about how whatever the new technology was, how that technology might enhance what we do, at least in news media. And that curiosity leads to experimentation, and experimentation leads to innovation. And it gives people on the team permission to try things. It gives them permission to fail. And that's how positive change happens. So there's a few things that have been hallmarks for me.
So, Vivian, how do you see the role of the next generation of media innovators, and what advice would you give them?
Well, first of all, whenever a young person expresses interest in journalism to me, I try to desperately encourage them to keep going. I see so many people saying to them, oh, don't do that. There's no future in it. But boy, we need journalists. And particularly young people who are digital natives, I think, are the best positioned, certainly more than I ever will be. And I can study as much as I want, but this is a generation that has grown up
with technology just as part of their DNA. So I think that they will invent new forms, new formats, and hopefully new business models to keep this incredibly important trade going.
I think it's time for us to go to the lightning round. So at the end of each episode, we like to ask our guests a series of quick-hitting questions to get to know them on a more personal level. Okay, so first one, what is your preferred way to take a break from the relentless news cycle?
Switch from my phone to my laptop? Well, honestly, I'm very lucky where I live. I have beautiful woods out in my backyard. And so I like to take a hike by stream and just sort of look at the sky and have a range of sight that's beyond this to actually in the distance. So that's my favorite thing.
Perfect. What's one emerging platform or technology that you think journalists need to understand?
I don't know if I can name one. I'm going to name this one because it is one I do not understand, but I think I feel like I need to understand, which is gaming platforms. What does gaming have to do with journalism? I don't know yet, but I think it is, first of all, where a lot of the public is. And I also think it's where a lot of cutting edge innovation is. So this is an area of curiosity for me.
So in your opinion, what's the most overhyped media trend right now?
I would say cryptocurrency, which I'm differentiating from blockchain, which I think is underhyped, but cryptocurrency is overhyped.
What is the best career advice that you've ever received?
That you don't need to have a career plan.
Ooh.
I have never had a plan. I still don't have a plan. I don't know. I just see if something seems interesting. I'm like, let me try that. Now, if you want to be like a heart surgeon or something, you have to have a plan because you got to get all the training. But most careers are not like that.
Okay, so it wouldn't be a future back drinking podcast without this question. So if you could choose one person to have a drink with, who would it be and why?
One of the people that is most intriguing to me right now, who I would love to get a drink with, I don't know that a drink is going to happen, is Pope Leo.
You're the second person to say that.
So first of all, I am not a Catholic, but look, the Pope has tremendous influence on many people all over the world. And he seems like a really interesting guy. And he seems very tuned into technology and its impact. So I'd love to get a martini with the Pope.
Perfect.
Oh, Vivian, thank you so much for coming today. As always, kind of a delightful discussion. I'm sure we'll see each other in upcoming forums, but it has been a pleasure working with you and looking forward to working even more with you closely and the Aspen Institute.
I'm so honored that you asked me to be on your podcast.
Amazing.
Athina, that was another incredible conversation. Really esteemed guest who's had such an illustrious career, first in media and now transitioning to leading Aspen Digital. I would love to reflect on our big takeaways from this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, reality is Vivian is such an esteemed journalist who has had, to your point, an illustrious career in all the amazing media news outlets, and then now is driving a big change for Aspen Institute through Aspen Digital. We have had the privilege of working very closely with her now almost, for 4 years, and it's very clear that the way she brings technology companies, big corporations, NGOs, government institutions together to find solutions to the very difficult problems of technology innovation and the implication of on our society, on workforce, on growth, and the big problems that we deal with. It's exemplary. She has this magic touch of getting the best out of the people and then driving convergence in topics that you would never believe that you can find common themes and common solutions. So an exceptional human being, but also an exceptional professional.
Yes, so useful to have someone whose role and position is actually, to kind of oversee so many different industries and put those pieces together. That is really unique. And I imagine, especially as someone who works with her at PepsiCo, that's so valuable to have that insight into everything.
Her ability to synthesize but analyze and then bring all the pieces together to be able to drive very tangible outcomes is something that we have cherished a lot. And also bringing together the best of research with practical examples. This is, in our case, we brought the practical examples. You brought exactly the research experience. And I think that blend was amazing for both of us.
Absolutely. And just, I think, a lot of tangible takeaways.
Thank you for listening to Future Back Drinking. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and stay connected with us on all your favorite podcast platforms. Until next time, take care.